Okay, so if you guys haven't been following my channel for a very long time, if you guys are pretty new to this channel, I'm pretty sure you guys will not know that I've made a video before talking about Cobra Kai and how I pretty much wasn't a fan of part 1 of season 6, which I was going to cover part 2, but then I just never did. Or at least I don't remember if I did. I don't think I did. I just remember making the one video kind of, just being very critical of Cobra Kai as a whole, and just kind of, just basically saying how it was a pretty good show, but it's also severely flawed. And I gotta say, like, yeah, it still is the case to this day, but if you guys don't know, Cobra Kai's finally ended. The show's over. I finished it. I finished it a couple days ago. I just forgot to go over it because I don't usually talk about TV shows and movies and all that too often. When it comes to movies, the last movie I covered was Deadpool Wolverine. Pretty pretty big movie, I would say. But anyways, so Cobra Kai final season. What do I think about the final season now that it's finally over? How do I feel about the show as a whole? I'm gonna go over that right now. So let me talk about the final season though, because that's the main point of all this. And well, I just gotta say, the final season is probably the show's weakest season, especially the first 5 episodes of that season. It's absolutely terrible. Uh, just not very good writing, very weak storytelling. Not a lot of interesting things going on. But I do gotta say, once going into part 2, like, yes, it's severely flawed, but I think part 2 was pretty good. It was not that bad. It was pretty solid. And, the writing was okay. The Sekai Taikai tournament was great. It was a lot of fun to watch. Um, I just know, like, obviously, very tragic incident that happens at the end of part 2 that leads into part 3, which kind of makes things very, I don't know, makes things very weird, going to part 3, because obviously, like, I mean, spoilers, I'm just gonna talk about it. uh Someone dies at the end, right? And it's obviously, end of the tournament and all that, and, it's just this whole, like, third part. Like, the first 2 episodes were mainly about bringing back the Sekai Taikai, because obviously, since someone died, they decided, hey, let's just shut down the tournament. We're not gonna do the tournament anymore. Shut it down. And, like, that's cool and all, right? That they went through this whole story arc of them trying to actually, like, bring it back and all that. And kind of making characters like Silver actually have some sort of actual motivation behind what he does. They actually changed how Kreese acts. Kreese actually changes, which is insane. Kreese changes the most out of any character in the show by the end of this, by this season. And, like, it's really cool to see. But, just sucks that it took so long. But a lot of stories were wrapped up, a lot of stuff with Johnny and Kreese. This final part mainly focused on the main characters, which I'm so happy about, like Daniel, Johnny, Miguel, Sam, Robbie, Tori. All pretty good stuff, and I'm so glad they focused on those characters instead of the side characters, because honestly, like, this show is mainly about them, not the side characters. So I'm so glad they just sidelined every single one of the side characters and mainly focused on, actually, mainly Johnny and Miguel more than the other main characters, which I'm so happy about, because obviously, like, it's their show. Like, the show is about them, not the other characters. Cobra Kai is Johnny's story and Miguel's story too. Because when you really think about it, Miguel's kind of like the new Daniel. You know, he's like the new Karate Kid, pretty much, right? Like, that's pretty much how the show started with Johnny and Miguel. And this whole, like, show is about Johnny's redemption. And I'm just so glad by the end of this final season, they decided to go, hey, let's just focus on Johnny and his redemption in these final 3 episodes, which I gotta say, the final 3 episodes are some of the best episodes in the show, by far, and has been the most, like, I've enjoyed Cobra Kai since, like, the early seasons, because I am a very big fan of the early seasons of the show, and to see how good, you know, those early seasons were, and we're getting episodes that are just as good as those early seasons makes me so happy, and especially since they went full circle and went back to the roots of the show, which is mainly about Johnny and Miguel and them being in Cobra Kai. When they did that, right, because obviously, you know, spoilers, they go back into Cobra Kai, Miguel and Johnny are in Cobra Kai, right? It's Johnny's Cobra Kai, not Kreese or Silver's, you know. Johnny's Cobra Kai is the one that wins the tournament, you know. And it's pretty cool because Miguel and Tori are definitely the best fighters out of all the kids, and they won the tournament, and they very much deserve to win the tournament. So it's very satisfying to see them win. Robbie and Sam had pretty good endings too. It was pretty good, you know, the endings were good for them, honestly. Miguel did great, and then they had a whole thing where it was like, oh, since both teams in the tournament got tied, they moved on to saying, well, the only other thing to do to see which team wins is make the senseis fight, and obviously since Cobra Kai's running, or not Cobra Kai, Johnny's running Cobra Kai, sorry, obviously Johnny will be fighting against the sensei from the Iron Dragons, and obviously it's very reminiscent of the original Karate Kid, and pretty much, since the story goes full circle, right, Johnny finally gets his redemption. Like, his redemption arc is complete once Johnny wins the whole tournament and becomes a world champion. And Cobra Kai also becomes the world champion team, which is awesome because this is Johnny's Cobra Kai. This is not Kreese's, not Silver's Cobra Kai's. It's Johnny's. And Johnny won the tournament. He finally got redeemed. You know, they also had another, like, full circle moment from the original Karate Kid where it's like, you know, Daniel is the one that goes up and he says, oh, you're alright, Lawrence. Well, in the original Karate Kid, you know, when Johnny lost, he goes, you're alright, LaRusso, you know, pretty cool callback. You know, I just love what they did. That they mainly focused on Johnny and Miguel, you know. Miguel, taking into consideration everything he's ever learned, all the lessons he's ever learned, like, just taking that in and just kind of doing his final fight, you know, just doing callbacks, flashbacks, pretty much, of everything, every single lesson he's learned, was so cool. And everyone's stories were wrapped up pretty perfectly, in my opinion. And I like how the show ends with an actual, like, proper ending, because it feels like the characters actually, like, have proper endings. Like, the show, like, is ended. Like, it's not left open. It doesn't tease anything for the new Karate Kid coming out later this year. It just has an ending for the show. Like, the show's story is complete. It has an actual ending, but in a way kind of leaves it open a little bit, because obviously, like, it ends, you know, Daniel's still doing Miyagi-Do, Johnny's still running Cobra Kai, you know, they're both teaching the students the different, like, fighting styles. You know, all the kids go off to college and stuff, they all have perfect endings, in my opinion. And even, like, Hawk and Dimitri, like, they end up going to the same college. Like, they have a pretty good ending with those characters, too. And I'm just so surprised to see, like, they did such a good job like finishing all the character stories and giving them all good endings. Like Robbie and Tori become professional fighters. You know, like Sam goes off to Okinawa for college. Miguel also goes off to college. Him and Tori are Sekai Taikai champions. Johnny gets his redemption arc complete, like he's fully redeemed. You know, he finally forgives Kreese. Kreese and Silver are gone. I mean, Daniel is still just Daniel, but has accepted Johnny more, and they're actually, like, good friends now. Like, honestly, and even, like, and since they're good friends, like, Daniel and Johnny now hang out. Like, it's so cool. And I just gotta say, like, after everything that I had to deal with the show, like, with all the bad moments, all the cringy moments, all the stupid drama, all these extra fights that are just there just for the sake of having fights. Just after all this BS I had to deal with all the later seasons, I gotta say it was worth it. Honestly, I think it was worth watching the whole thing because they did the ending so like well that I honestly just see it as completely worth watching the whole show. And I get like, yeah, some people are gonna have a struggle going like through like seasons 4, 5, and like 6, but like honestly, I think the ending just makes up for it, and it properly wraps up the show. It just wraps it up so well, and honestly, like, I'm so glad they did that. You know, I'm really happy about it. The show being over. Yeah, I don't know, I kind of am feeling some peace about it. Like, I'm kind of at peace with what they did. Because, yeah, there were moments where, like, I just did not like the show at all. Like, I used to love the show, and then I didn't. Right, like, I would watch, like, seasons 1 and 2, and I absolutely loved those seasons. 3 was great. Had some iffy, you know, kind of moments where I was like, I don't know about that, you know, it's kind of dumb, but whatever. 4 was kind of not so good, especially with the introduction of Silver. Silver really pissed me off. I did not like Silver at all as a villain. And I absolutely hated the fact that they did this thing where it's like, oh, he's rich, so he can just use his money to get away with anything, which, I mean, it makes sense, but I think it's just really stupid as a villain. Because it's just really annoying, because there's just no consequences for what he does. And just, there's so many things that just make it... There's just so many things that are just too inconvenient, you know, when it comes to that kind of stuff. And it's like, you know, I wish they just would have done something a lot cooler with Silver, you know? He was just annoying. He caused so many problems. I just did not like his character. Like, Silver's character alone made me not like the later seasons of Cobra Kai. So, you know, like, season 4, honestly, was really not so great. 5 was, I don't know, 5 was solid, in my opinion. It did some right things, it did a lot of, you know, wrong things, but, you know, it ended pretty well. And characters actually made a lot of character development, but then we get into season 6, and obviously character development gone. Problems, you know, drama, just that are just completely pointless and stupid, and, you know, obviously makes things go backwards for all the character development. But, you know, part 2 was okay, then part 3 was actually amazing. Great ending, you know. And I just gotta say, overall, like, when I really think about the show overall, like, obviously, I'm going over how I'm already feeling about the show overall, like, each season, right? I think season 1 is perfect. I think season 2 is great. You know, season 2 is probably the best season. But, like, season 1 is a perfect season as well. Because, honestly, the show could have just been that one season, and we could have been done, right? It just could have been a one-and-done season. But it wasn't. And it kept going. And, honestly, overall, I just think the show is great. You know, like, for what it's done. Sure, there's most of the show, like, pretty much, like, half the show I didn't like, but, like, it was a journey, you know. It was interesting to see all the old Karate Kid characters again. It was cool, because obviously all these people are all grown up, because the Karate Kid movies came out so long ago. I think it was in, like, the 80s, I think, when those movies came out. 70s, 80s, something like that. So it was really cool to see all these actors come back and just to see their characters return, and it was just really cool because, like I said, like those characters were in the original Karate Kid movies. I just thought it was awesome. So I don't know. Just really thinking about it, like overall, I say the show is pretty solid. And I'm just glad the writers, you know, like even though they deviated so far from what the show originally was in the beginning, I'm just glad that the writers realized that maybe we should turn that around and focus more on Johnny and Miguel, because this is their story. This whole show is about Johnny's redemption. That's the whole point of the show. It's a spin-off about Johnny. Because for a while it did kind of transition over to it being like all about Daniel, but I'm just glad they went back to the roots in the end. And honestly, just did a good job with, you know, wrapping up this whole story as a whole. And I'm just glad this chapter of this Karate Kid universe is now, like, been closed. We're moving on, you know. We're gonna move on to the next story, which is the Karate Kid movie that's coming out with Daniel and Mr. Han. Gonna be pretty awesome, I hope. I mean, I've always thought Karate Kid always worked better as a movie than a TV show. Because obviously, Cobra Kai has so many issues, so many problems. But you know what? It's still pretty enjoyable at the end of the day. You know, there were times where it got hard to watch, but hey. I think at the end of the day, as long as the show has a great ending, I'm honestly okay with it. The show is solid. And that's all I'll say. Like, it's not the best thing in the world, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is really solid, so I'll give it that. But anyways, yeah, that's gonna be it for this video though, you guys. I just really wanted to talk about Cobra Kai, just, you know, the ending and all that, and how I thought about it, you know. I like it, of course, and I also just kind of wanted to go over how I just feel about the show overall, you know. But yeah, that's all I really want to talk about for today, so that's gonna be for this video though, you guys. If you guys made this far into the video, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye, guys.